everyone. It's me again. Hi. Do you remember the energy you gave me last time? Hi. Thank you. So my name is Gadoni, as CK has said. Thank you, CK. I'm the community manager at AfriPods. AfriPods is a podcast hosting and distribution platform, and we're building the largest library of African audio stories on the planet. If you haven't heard about AfriPods, check us out, afripods.africa, free hosting, but we also have a lot of podcasts you can listen to. So if you're looking for your new favorite African podcast, that's where you need to check. And without further ado, I want to invite my guest today to talk to us about building community around our podcasts. His name is Calvin Wanguku. I was going to remove the other name, but I don't think he wants it public. Calvin Wanguku is the name we're going to go with. And you guys know him as Big C. He is a radio personality, but he's also one of the hosts of Mics Are Open. So join me in welcoming Calvin to the stage. Calvin? Guys, be more excited. Hi, Cal. How are you? Yay! Okay. I told them you're a celebrity and you were hiding, so thank you for coming. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not used to you being so calm.
Oh, you look beautiful, first and foremost.
Always, thank you. It's the way I am. It's the way we act. Sorry.
I like the hair.
Anyway,
and the
thank
shoes.
Thank you.
And the book.
Yeah, I have to ask you questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so I always start my questions or any conversation I have. I like to start it by asking the person, how would you introduce yourself to someone who doesn't know about you?
Wow, that's definitely not the question I was expecting. As you said, my name is Calvin. I am an all-around media practitioner. I currently work on the radio at Trace East Africa. I've been doing radio for 12 years. I've been doing podcast for, wow, almost like maybe 8 years or something like that. Other than that, I've worked in advertising. So I'm a marketer by extension. And I just a businessman, entrepreneur. That's essentially what I do. Yeah.
Okay, businessman.
What is the question? Who am I?
How would you introduce
I'm
yourself?
a Christian. Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
So.
That was for my mom.
That's for your mom.
Yeah.
Hi, Mom. So I want you to, we're here today because you've said you've been podcasting for 8 years. So there's a lot of things you do, not taking away from any of that. But then because you're very well known in the podcasting space for Mics Are Open, first, congratulations on 5 years on Mics Are Open. That's
Thank
a
you.
big deal. Guys, this is where you clap. Wow, thank you. But I wanted to find out from you, how did the podcast start? Like, what is it that made you guys as a team decide this is what we're going to do, podcasting is the reason, or how we'll do it is the medium we'll choose? And why did you choose your co-hosts as they exist?
Well, a need arose, that's for sure. I think we've always been very politically correct. Essentially what happened is this. The radio station where we used to all work at was going through a transition because it had just been acquired by another media house. So essentially we were a bit wild before, so we kind of had to tone down, and we got to a point where like, you guys listen to the Brilliant Idiots, right? So we were like, Charlemagne and Andrew, they crack jokes and do all of this, talk about literally just about everything. So we just started thinking about it. So we thought about it for about a month, kept pushing it, and I'd been doing podcasting before, so I was the most experienced in terms of podcasting. And then we started thinking about names, and it took so long. And then someone just said the Mics Are Open, which I thought was a daft name, and it's stuck. And that is how we kind of started the podcast, because essentially we wanted a bit more freedom to express ourselves, because a lot of people had liked the kind of things that we wanted to do. We did rather on the radio show. And why did we choose ourselves? We already had a relationship. We worked together. So G and I at that particular point, G referring to G Money, I think we'd worked together for like 8 years on the Breakfast Show. So we had pretty good chemistry. Andy had come in as our videographer at that particular point, and then, you know, he just jumps on the mic, join the Breakfast Show. So that's how we all came to be about. And so essentially the Mics Are Open was Andy, myself, and G. We used to do the radio show together. And then over time, Neville joined us, but he'd left the station and gone to Capital. And, you know, he occasionally does join us. And then over time, we were like, it's just been a boys' club for a bit too long. Let's let Ashley join us. So that's how he came to be about. Yeah. I hope that was like a genius answer.
It's not, but she was feeling the 33.3% thing quota. That's why you got her.
Well, she's part of us guys. Like, yeah,
Okay.
she does an amazing job. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I was like, you said like we needed to fill the girl role. I just wanted to speak on behalf of Ashley. She's talented, right?
She's very talented, and you guys should also listen to our podcast. She's got DSD, Ashley and Nimrod. It's actually Nimrod's birthday today. Don't ask me how I know that. So if she's watching or listening, happy birthday to her. Yeah.
Okay. Now you've started your podcast. You're coming from radio. At what moment did you realize the significance of the podcast? Like, what made you see? Is there a point in time that you saw traction in the numbers? In as much as you were personalities coming in from radio, is there a point in time that you were like, oh, we didn't make a mistake going into radio?
I think at that particular point, podcasting was relatively new. So we were doing an episode, it gets like 1,000 plays. That was like platinum, you know, like in the music era. So we were just pushing. If you look at us over time, I think it's one of those things. I think we'll talk about social media at some point. We used to push the podcast like heavy, like 5 tweets a day. You know, you're just pushing it. Radio, we were coming from radio, and at that particular point, radio was more of a bigger medium than it is right now. So we had to push it and push it and push it. And also we had to educate people on what podcasting is, right? And at that particular point, we were only doing audio. So we had to do a lot of work to push, to what. Guys were just like, oh, it's a podcast. How do you find it? Where do I find it? How do you do it? What do you guys talk about? So it was a lot of education at that particular point, but we had to push and push and push. At that particular point, we were forwarding, you know, like blast forwards on WhatsApp. You just send it to everybody. Writing articles about it, all of those. We just applied all of those different kind of things. And so it just gets to a point where you start to see people commenting to your tweets saying, oh, I liked this. Can you guys, I liked that joke. You guys articulated yourselves like this and like that. So that was the response that kept us going at that particular point. And we're also seeing, okay, there's a community that we're kind of creating. Yeah.
Okay, so was social media initially your main strategy to grow your audience, or was there anything else you applied as a group?
Well, word of mouth for sure. You know, you're talking about it at that particular point. Since we were on the radio together, we'd end the show on Friday because we'd record the podcast at 10 a.m. on Friday, literally after the radio show. So it'd be like, we're signing off. We're like, yes, so that's the end of the show this week. Remember where to find us right after for the extra madness. So that kind of helped, and us guys were just breaking the rules, to be honest. So that and social media, word of mouth, and all of that. And we ran some odds, I think. But the big thing that we did was, actually when I was coming down here, I passed a billboard where we actually took out a billboard site for. That was the biggest thing that we ever did. Yeah, we printed a whole thing and put up a billboard, I think on a Thursday afternoon. And it went up and everybody was like, wow, You guys did that? Yeah, that was pretty cool, I think.
It really was a big deal when
Yeah.
you guys put up the billboard.
I mean, no one, I don't think anybody has ever put up a billboard for a podcast. I stand corrected, but I don't think so.
I actually haven't seen any other.
Yeah.
Since.
That was the first billboard, though. We put out 2 others after that.
Okay. He
Sorry.
said we've had 3 billboards.
Well, I think a couple of months later. But to be honest, that was me applying myself coming from my other discipline, which is advertising. So I was able to be like, hey, because you already know some of these guys who own billboards and all of those, right? So you're able to kind of strike a deal. You guys put money together and you guys take up a billboard. But it was really good. A lot of people were sharing it on social media. It was, the wow factor, right? If everything is special, nothing is special. You guys can tweet and tweet and tweet. So that for us worked because everybody was like, who are these clowns? I mean, who are these guys who've actually gone and taken a billboard? Yeah.
Okay. And I understand your personality, you had certain access in your advertising space, like where you work in advertising, as well as from radio. How would you translate that when it comes to accessibility or strategies that you used at the beginning, that someone who, for example, me, who doesn't have access to, I don't know, a guy who has a billboard, or I was never on radio, I never did any of those things. How do I apply the strategies that you did in order to build an audience as well?
Wow. I don't know whether I'm going to answer that correctly, but I'll try. There's a couple of things. So from a radio background, you understand, tonal variation, production, all of these different kind of things, how to storytell, how to script, all of those things, how to be able to get the attention of people, all of that, it helps. From a media perspective, you're able to know, I can contact someone at this magazine or this digital platform to be able to get to the masses and all of that. From an advertising perspective, you have to know that you can't be on a podcast and start trashing brands that you potentially want to work with in future. So you got to be smart enough to know, like say for instance, if you're talking about taxi hailing apps, you can't just mention Uber, you got to mention Bolt, you got to mention, what's that one called, Farasi?
I know.
Faras. And Little.
Yego.
You get, and Yego, yes. So you have to know that there's people who will catch a feeling and they're like, okay, why did you mention Bolt instead of mentioning this? So you have to like look at those things like that. And also just look at it from a very professional kind of way. So it's one of those things where all of those things combined enable you to create a product that can go to market and you can build a community around. But also, I'd be lying to say that it was hard work for us. We already had a community of people who liked us on the radio. So, and we were milking it and we're saying, guys, find us on here. So we kind of, it's like when guys go to the Olympics, right? And the Russians are on, what do you call it? Sorry, did I say Russians? Whatever, guys are on steroids. So us guys were kind of doping. You get what I mean? Yeah. So improved athleticism, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not touching that. I don't want to disappear.
No,
so
why I think I mentioned that is there's a really good documentary on Netflix that I think I should watch this weekend about doping in the Olympics. And he mentions Russia. I'm geeky like that.
Okay, again, I'm not touching that. So based on what you've mentioned already, you talked about doing 5 tweets a day, going on Instagram and doing all of that. How did you use social media, or what are the things you can give as examples that common citizens without the background of media and advertising and all of that can use for social media that actually helped you as mics are open and as Calvin with your 8 years of experience and everything? What are the ways you can grow your audience using social media?
So when I went to school, they taught us about the flow of communication. So the flow of communication starts with, like, say, me who's using this medium, the microphone, to encode my voice to get onto whatever digital platform, and then Molly is on her phone. She's able to view that, so that's the decoder in that particular point. And after she's watched whatever that I'm saying, on that other end is able to give me feedback. So that's a whole flow of communication. So that's how I look at social media. So us guys are using social media to put out this content that we've created, right? We're telling guys, go watch this, go listen to this and all of that kind of stuff. And on the other side, people have watched it, they're able to tell us, we didn't like this, we like this. Like I'll never forget the point at which we decided to start doing video, and we were just recording on, on an iPhone. And one guy commented and said, boss, that was 2020, I've never forgotten. They're like, why are you guys recording on like, was it 1080p or what's the one below 1080p? 720. The guy was like, boss, 720, we can't watch this stuff. So that was feedback for us to be able to say, okay, let's up our game. Let's, put some money together and get a camera and all of that. So social media for us has been very important in terms of, advertising, building a community. But honestly, if you ask me, the mics are open in terms of our social media. I feel like we've just never gotten it right, like totally. Like I look at some of the other podcasts out there and I'm like, man, they post some cool stuff. But us guys, I feel like it's one of those things where us as individuals, our cool and all of that, and just different kind of things of who we are, we all bring it together. Yeah.
Is there strength in using your personalities or your personal profiles to push the podcast? Because a lot of people, the conversations I've had with podcasters is they want to almost detach, where they don't want people to know who they are. It's like they've created a personality for their podcast. Is there any strength in being Calvin, the radio personality, on Mics Are Open?
Wow. Kinda. I don't know how to answer that, to be honest. Because I feel like who I am on the radio is not who I am on the podcast, right? Like it might come out on the podcast at times, but on the radio it's more music, you're interviewing different personalities and all of that. On the podcast, it's us guys just bantering, because on our podcast, we don't do interviews much, right? So it's us guys, the personalities of who we are, the different people that we are. So it kind of does and kind of doesn't. Is that enough for you as an answer?
Would you use your personal profile? Thank you. Would you use your personal profile to push?
Of course I do. I'm actually the one who posts the most. Like, I'll always look for those dumb jokes and post them. Probably G's a bit too old to post those kind of things, or he's a bit too...
rude.
Yeah, or Andy's a bit too Christian, or he's got an endorsement with like Red Bull. He can't be talking about this and that. Yeah. So for me, I'll be the, I'll be like the Joker. And Heath Ledger?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows Heath Ledger.
Yes. So it does benefit, but also I see a lot of people who just never post about their podcast on their personal pages. Yeah. So I think it just boils down to a personal decision and what your social media stands for. And then again, it's not that serious.
Okay, so you'd mentioned having feedback in the communication loop that you mentioned. What role does audience interaction play in your content creation? So, for example, the guy in 2020 was like 720p ew, and you guys did something about it. Is there any other, like, how much weight does audience interaction or thought or their feedback go into your content creation?
A lot, actually. So we've got an episode that's dropping tomorrow, and we had to actually address a comment that came out last week. So over the last couple of weeks on the Mics Are Open, I've been away for like 3 weeks. G was away for like 3 weeks. Andy's away as well. Ashley was away. So someone said it's gotten to a point that watching the Mics Are Open is a bit scarring because they're never together. So on this week's episode, it's Ashley, myself, G, right? And is still away. And that feedback for us, I remember I actually saw that on the comment, and I was like, guys, we've got to address this because it looks like guys are starting to notice Wagwan, but it's life. People are going through different scenarios and or people are traveling and all of that kind of stuff. So that's feedback. So you guys need to address that. You know you're answerable to a community. You get? It's like going to your drug dealer. It's like going to your shopkeeper, and they don't have
I feel like you're going to be arrested after this.
It's like going to your shopkeeper and you know, do you remember Prestige margarine?
I don't know why you're saying that like it's not still in the market.
Is it?
Calvin, stop it.
No, I'm a BB kind of guy.
Sour.
Yes.
Are they paying you endorsement?
So, no, not yet. Shaguna to Unilever. So, you go there and they constantly don't have BB. And you know this is a place where they give you the blue band. So, it's one of those things. The second example I'd use in terms of feedback is a couple of years ago, we did a financial podcast where we were talking about, you know, how to like have a spreadsheet where you can balance like, you know, your income, this, that, your savings, budgeting essentially. And I think we put out an email and said, if you want this spreadsheet to help you with your finance, send us an email and we'll send it. To date, we still get people asking for it. And I think we've sent it to close to about 2,000 plus people. So that's feedback, right? Also in terms of us guys, when we did a live event, was it last year? Right? People kept asking for the live event. They were like, when are you guys going to do a live event? And we did the live event and people showed up. So that's still feedback. And us guys, you know, we asked the people, what do you guys want, right? When we talk about like mental health on the podcast and guys send in questions, there's all of that. I think we've kind of stopped it, but we used to have a Q&A session where each and every week we'd be sent question scenarios of people asking this and that. So, you know, people like to hear stuff like that. And I think in journalism, you're taught about like human stories, human interest. It's very big. Yeah.
Okay, so if I have a business podcast where I'm talking about farming, how do I get human interest in?
Wow, that's a good question. Human interest, right? Like in this particular Kenya of ours right now, guys are, you know, trying to till their land, be ready for, what do you call it? For planting season. And then you've got a whole scandal to do with fertilizer that's fake, right? So all of these people are all coming together, about to hit the streets, mandamano, and all of that because of fake fertilizer. That's human interest. Everybody's very interested in that. Yeah. Because if you don't, imagine not having your favorite meal because you never planted. That would be bad. Are you vegetarian?
No, Calvin. That has nothing to do with the conversation.
All right, sorry. Yeah.
Anyway, so a lot of people, or the importance of community for a lot of people is being able to monetize your community, because in essence, by building a community, I'm building an audience for whoever it is. So as you're talking about Andy with Red Bull, you with Blue Band shouting out Unilever as you did, that's basically what you're doing. So what role does your audience play for you in deciding who it is you'll work with or partner with or have sponsor your podcast?
So this is where data comes into play. So when you go on the back, you're able to see this is the male-female split. They're based in this town. These are the countries, the languages, desktop, mobile phone, all of these different kind of things. Like for us guys when the mics are open, I think for the longest time it used to be like a 90 to something male pure audience. It's kind of
10.
Yeah?
If
10.
it's 90, it's 10.
No.
You said 90. It's out of 100, Calvin.
Listen, it's the year 2024. There's non-binary. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's fine. I'll take that.
You thought you're smart, right?
I'll take that. I know
So-
I am.
So obviously, based upon that data, you're able to craft. And advertising is built upon that, right? So guys will tell you, like for the longest time in advertising, there's always been content from ladies, right? Like over 25, they were getting the bag for continuous years, right? Because they just spoke to the ladies. For the lads, you'd look for a podcast or even content creators, there was none. You get? So you look at that and you're able to say, who do I want to target? You get? Say, for instance, I'm looking at like aftershave. I'm going to come to like the mics are open. I'll go to Man Talk and all of these different kind of things. So you just have to understand what's going on. And when you sit with like agencies or even anybody in marketing, they'll send you a brief, or a client will send tell the agency, I want this kind of podcast group or podcaster who are speaking to this audience. So once you understand your audience, you're able to go to market. But I think for us guys, it was one of those things where back to radio and also advertising. So on radio, you go for a lot of media briefs, right? Like when Meinek again is talking to you guys about like Stanbic Bank, get your mortgage, what. He went to the agency and they briefed him about, we want you guys to talk to these guys who are 35 plus, they're on their third job, they've got this amount of money, all of those different kind of things. So they know who they're targeting, right? So for us guys, based upon our radio background, we understood how we can exactly do that. And then me coming from an advertising background, I was able to say, let's go to this guys, let's go to that guy, like that. So it kind of helps. But in this day and age, it's gotten way easier. Yeah, you can literally just, you can even just DM whatever company, like Coca-Cola, for instance, and just be like, hey, I'd like to work with you guys.
Okay, let's go into that. I'm a podcaster, I'm looking to make money. What is my DM, what is the DM looking like? Because I don't have the access, again, I keep mentioning, that you do with media, with advertising, with a background or already set community that came in from your radio job. Even though you've gone to different jobs after, you had a pre-made, preset community that came with you, right?
Yeah.
And you have, not to say you haven't fostered a new community in the space at all, but there was an advantage you had from that. So when Calvin writes a direct message to Coca-Cola, they will, of course, check what's happening. So how does Gadoni or Angie or someone in this room who doesn't have the same advantage then approach? What should my DM have? Should I say, hi, I have this podcast? What should that look like? If I'm writing a cold email, what should that look like?
Okay. I do it in a different kind of way. Everybody can write. It's like CVs, cover letters, and all of that. Like, say, for instance, if I wanted to cold call Coca-Cola, and I had like podcast equipment, I'd actually just record a demo for Coca-Cola, like before my episode. So that's a pre-roll. So I'd do that. If I have video, I'd probably do product placement and all of these different kind of things. Or just when you look at Coca-Cola, they've got something called an always on, all year round. They'll always have this, that, what, so many different kind of companies. So you just got to look at what they're doing and kind of come up with something, because any person in marketing, and I'll tell you this, this may get me in trouble, but a lot of brand marketers tend to be lazy. You get what I mean? Yeah. I said that, so if you give them something that's out of the box, you've already kind of gotten in, because they sit in offices and they're like, what's the next big idea? What's the next big idea? So your big idea could be something super small and it kind of works for you. But as I said earlier, if everything is special, nothing is special. So come up with some really dope ideas. You can really push the idea, but also it has to be ethical, because most of these companies, like say for instance, if you work on like Wrigley, which is a global company, they've got like a whole code of ethics. Like for instance, you can't pair Skittles and vodka together. You get, that's not something to do. So all of these kind of ideas. So just shoot your short, try that. Still, presentations work. Also go on Google. In this day and age, you can literally Google everything. This is actually a secret to a lot of people here. Well, maybe some guys know. But globally, there's like 5 big media agencies, the Dentsu, the WPP, the OMD. So all you have to do is kind of like Google that. And if you go like under OMD, it will tell you all of the clients they represent. So if like OMD represents Wrigley in the US, in Africa, OMD affiliate agencies will represent it. So you can just shoot your shots to all of these different agencies. And these agency people are all around. They like to be at every gig. So just find out who they are. You have LinkedIn, reach out to them. Yeah, this is not days of the post office. So just shoot your shot, give the ideas, but don't, and most importantly, and I think I should have started with this, don't give up. Like I keep telling guys, Ask is the first episode we made money on, I think was episode 100. And we showed up and showed up and showed up and showed up. So the first check we ever made was episode 100. And then after that, we've continued and continued. And I think last year, we just signed our biggest deal ever. And we still continue to, you have to do it continuously. Because the dream for us guys is to actually just leave radio, essentially, and just do this thing every day. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had to go and Google all of these people, find out who represents them, make the money. But then I'm a new podcaster, for example. How do I position my podcast? Because a lot of times podcasters I've had been told, think of your podcast as a brand. So how do I position my podcast as a brand at the start in order to know at episode 100, I want to attract Wrigley's. So what do I need to do at episode 1 to ensure that I am going towards the goal of attracting the brand that I want to advertise on my podcast?
Wow. What's that thing that people put on the wall? Like, people write themselves like blank checks and put it on like
Vision board?
Yeah, that's the one. I'd use a vision board, right? So write what my podcast is about, what I want to achieve, what is my unique selling point for my podcast. Based upon that, I'll be able to maintain some level of consistency. So if I'm moving away from it, I can still come back towards it, right? There's a certain degree that you're permitted towards, right? But don't be too drastic. But anyway, if it happens, it happens. You'll come back, right? So come up with that and know who it is that you want to attract. You get? So go on and on and on, but make sure you have a unique selling point. Because if your podcast is Matogotanyo, it's just what it is.
How do you translate Matogotanyo?
Rubbish. Nonsense.
Okay.
Trash. Okay, that was a bit drastic. But just be consistent. Consistency is it. And you mentioned if you're a new podcaster. I think this is a mistake that happens a lot, and this is just to honestly tell people the truth. Don't get into podcasting thinking there's going to be money tomorrow. That is not going to happen. You will be so heartbroken. It will break your heart. It will be like elections and promises. You know what I'm saying, right? But so here's the thing: get into podcasting and just concentrate on the art, the content. Do it with a passion. Get to a point where we all want to make money, right? Get to the point where you can actually go to a brand. And by the way, going back to the previous point, not all businesses have agencies, by the way. That's actually true. That's big money. That's your Safaricom's, your Airtels, and all of those, $1 billion and billion shilling companies. There's a lot of companies out here that don't have. You could literally start a podcast where you just talk to SMEs. right? And there's so many different SMEs in Kenya. It's a huge industry, right? So you could actually just go directly to these people. Like say, for instance, I'm a tea farmer. I actually am, right? And I've packaged my tea. And I need an audience, so I can market through that. Yeah. So back to my point. Remind me, what was the other one? What was I saying? Fast forward.
What?
Vision board, new podcaster.
USP is what you were talking about.
USP. So you're a new podcaster. Work on that. Because when you go to any of this agency, SME, all of these different people, they want to see what it is you're doing. They want to see your data. They want to what. ROI is very important. Yeah. So and it's all about numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the last question on monetization, I promise you we're switching. How do you approach monetization and brands and sponsorship without alienating your audience? So you've built an audience, but there's a brand, let's say you guys want to associate with. What's the balance between what we want or what I want as a host and what my audience wants and needs?
Wow. Radio, unlike podcasting, or podcasting unlike radio. So on radio, you have all of these different, what do you call them? Brands who just want to come and advertise and say this and that. On podcasting, guys will tell you, nah, that's bullshit. We don't want to hear those guys. So if you're just one of those guys who just wants to be a supermarket, so you do that. But your audience is likely not to mess with you, right? So you have to actually think about when a product approaches you, say for instance, like if like Ferrari wanted to come into Kenya, what podcast do you reckon they want to advertise on?
Do you want me to say Mike's?
I think they'd go on Ikonini.
Okay. Why?
Because this is a wild guest, right? Shago Inatum Africa, he's my guy, right?
School people's, yeah.
But I'd not go on Mike's, I'd go on Ikonini, right? Because Ikonini has such, it's got a very interesting target audience. They're always asking so many different questions, the shock value, all of those different kind of things. It's going to be very spoken about and all of that. Whereas on the mics are open, askers will want to drive it and like take pictures and what and all of that. So it's different experiences. I'd actually end up on all of them, right? So it's just one of those things where you got to understand what your audience want, because in this day and age, like we said, the audience are giving you feedback in real time, and you'd have to be dumb to not see what the people are saying. So don't be one of those guys who's just chasing money left, right, and center. But at some point, bills have to get paid. Yes, I agree, and this comes from a point of also privilege. But just know your audience, because you can't lie to them. Yeah, because if you keep lying to them, the person giving you business will not want to come back. So there's no repetitive business. And I guess that's what business is. That's what you want to continuously make. Yeah.
Okay. We've built the audience. Every week we have 1,000, 2,000 people, 100, whatever it is, coming on the podcast. What are some ways you would say, based on what you've done? I know you had people going to Karura and things like that. So what are the things you've done as a podcast to kind of communicate or initiate, to associate with your community? And what are ways you think people can adopt? So what has worked for you guys?
Say that question again.
You have a community, you've built an audience. What are the ways that I can touch, like what are your touch points for your community? So we have social media, we've spoken about it, we're getting in the feedback loop and everything. Are there any other ways that you have made contact with your audience? I know there's a time you guys had people going to plant trees, I believe, in Karura.
Not yet.
You guys didn't take people to Karura?
Those carbon credits are coming soon, but not just yet.
But like, maybe you did it as a radio station, but like what are the ways, like the live, for example, as another thing, what are the ways that you have been able to touch or be able to basically have face-to-face interactions with your audience?
So we've done some things, right? I think what you're referring to is the walks that we do. International
Correct.
Happiness
Walks.
Day. So we've done
Yes.
a lot of those. So those are just sessions on a Saturday or on a Sunday where we just want to kick it with our audience, our community. Be like, hey, we can take like a quick 10-kilometer walk and just chat. It's so crazy. Those walks are actually like, that's when you know like you've got a community. You got guys coming straight from the club, drunk, and they've been turned away by the cops at Karura. They're like, no. They're chewing mirror. The guys go spit it out, change their like jackets and come back. They're like, see. It's funny, right? But it's brilliant. So we've done those kind of
Don't
things.
drink and drive. Thank you very much.
Yeah, they had a driver, by the way. Did I mention that?
They had a
Yeah.
driver.
So
Okay.
so those kind of things. We've gone the merchandise way because guys wanted to support us and all of those. We've had a pay bill number. Oh my God, that's another story. We had guys sending us 5 bob banner.
5 bob times 1,000 is a lot of money.
No, guys asked for a pay bill number. It was just 1 bob, 5 bob, 10 bob. But you know they're still messing with us. It's a brilliant thing. You know when we do the live, we've even been able to use some of the money that we've made to pay fees for people. So you know guys come to us with different needs and all of that. We've turned the podcast into not only just that, into a company that employs people who, you know, got medical insurance, they're on the, you know, payroll and all of those different kind of things. So it's not only just what we've been able to achieve from that, it's the tangible and the intangible, right? There's guys who say, you know, you get messages, guys are saying, I'm going through this right now, and just listening to you guys, it's been able to get me there and all of those. So it's a lot of things, and hence why I say tangible and intangible. Yeah.
Okay. How do you handle negative criticism or feedback from your audience?
You want the Aladdin news or the... No, sorry. That was that movie. As you can tell, I watch a lot of movies, I think. Like everybody else, you get some harsh criticism and you're like, what's this one want now? And all of that. But if you approach it like that, you know, there has to be something that someone is saying. Like there's a time someone said, oh, the mics are open, Calvin is on the mobile phone a lot. Like I'd be texting, right? And we had to have a conversation about that. Or when someone said, you guys were speaking over Ashley. Yeah, so you guys have to address all of that. Or, you know, the plaque on the wall is slanted. It's giving me issues. I don't like the color, the what. Calvin's too dark, he's not lit well. You got to address these things. Or just like the other thing that we were saying when guys were like, we'd been missing episodes. It's very important. You just gotta be positive about it. And then there's just guys who are just trying to ruin your day. So you just have to have that zen to know that this is a guy who's just trying to ruin your day, and this is someone who's actually giving you, what's that? Constructive criticism. Whew, that was a big word.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So you just got to know how to balance it. Yeah.
Do you use the block button? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, especially those guys who walk up to me and they're trying to like crack jokes about my dad. And I'm like, bro, you don't know me like that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very sensitive to me.
And yet you brought it up. So, guys, when you're talking to Calvin after, don't talk about his dad, okay? Together?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, you've talked about not being the same in the market. How do I differentiate myself? You're a talk podcast, I'm a talk podcast. Someone else has a talk podcast. What's the difference? How do I make it different?
Remember the unique selling point, right? Like, say, for instance, the other day there was a Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. We were getting tweets all week. Guys are like, we can't wait for you guys to dissect this. Because guys know this is what? if there's a whole conversation about like Mango's new season or LC Waikiki's fashion, they're not coming to the mics or open. They're going to go on Man Talk. That's what those guys rock, right? Shagrenati, Eli, and them. No, but you get what I mean.
I'm with you.
Right? So it's one of those things where, what's my guy? Obina. He's got politicians, he's got everybody, right? So he's come up with his own niche. That's what he's doing. Messi in between. When I watch them, listen to them, they've got all of this different. When I watch Ikonini, he's talking about this and that and what. So it's just a matter of knowing who's my audience, who am I talking to, what's my unique selling point, what do I stand for, who do I want to bring. Yeah, three-man army. I know when I watch them, this is what they're talking about, right? There's another podcast where this guy is just, what do you call it? They drink on the podcast and like give their reviews. Sloshed, right? Yeah, but they give their reviews. But that's a unique selling point. Yeah. So if I'm like London Distillers and I'm trying to like get what my new drink tastes like, I'll send it to my lads. Yeah.
Okay.
Make sense?
Makes sense. I'm coming to you guys for questions. I have one more question for Calvin, then I'm coming to you. So please prep your questions. I like to say this. Dear Kenyans, I love you guys. Mine is not a question. Is not the time to do that here, please. We only want questions, yes? If yours is a comment, please give it to us after the questions. When I say thank you so much for coming, that's when you give us the call. Thank you. Mine is not a question. This is not the time. So please prep your questions. Yes? As I ask Calvin my last question. Calvin, I want you to give 3 pieces of advice to a podcaster who's starting on how to build their community. What are the 3 things I should consider or you think are the most important things when building a community for my podcast?
All right. In no particular order. Quality, first and foremost. Yeah, so quality is very important because, I mean, when you look at when Kimanzi started recording his reels up until right now, some of these content creators are shooting movies on a big G budget. You get what I mean? Literally, like, you know they endorse Big G, right? Yeah.
We understood you, Calvin. Calm down.
So quality is very important. No one's going to want to listen to your podcast Kila Wiki and there's a hum or sijui, there's a jogo in the back.
Actually, I have to fight for the jogo because we watched over 25 with that jogo in the back.
They did?
We watched it. It became a member of the
That was
squad.
a cockfight or what was going on?
No, there was just a jogo in the background that
sorry.
used to exist. But
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah,
Quality.
so quality is very important. So kind of work on it. You can start with like a bit of like, if you're recording under your mat, under your blanket or something, or duvet or whatever. So start with that, but know when to grow. You get? You can't be on that same struggle for life. Nah, that's not the way. So grow. It's very important because you also grow with your guys. Because there's guys who will just get tired of what you're doing and all of that. Be genuine, right? It's very important to be genuine because it doesn't become a task. So enjoy what you're doing. Be genuine in who you are, what you are, what. Not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone's going to love you. But just be genuine in all of that. The third thing is for people to be consistent. Like, as I said, don't get into it just thinking, oh, this is going to blow up like tomorrow, like that. Be very, very consistent. There will be days when you don't feel like podcasting. Even ask guys who are on like episode 300, there's days I just don't feel like. But I know that I'm a podcast dealer and I'm on the corner and people are coming for that. Mics are open, magic. You see what I did there?
Sure, Calvin. We see what you did.
Yeah. So that's the way. Yeah.
Awesome. Before I thank you for being here, do we have questions from the audience for Mr. Big C? If you have a question, please raise your hand. A mic will come to you. Don't be afraid. Any questions? Okay.
Hi, Calvin.
Hey, how are you? Long time, man.
Long time, long time. So you've talked about quality, and that's a very important thing. But my question is, when you're pushing it out to places like Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever you want to put it, how do you get to that level or that quality, the meters where it's accepted, that like the really nice sound stuff? Like, where do you get all these assets to do that really nice stuff to make the podcast sound nice? You might be underneath your blanket and whatever, and you sound nice, but you still have to edit and stuff like that. Those simple assets that help, a new podcaster, where do you get those?
Right. So like if I was recording under my blanket, my duvet, so probably on my mobile phone. So hopefully at this particular point, I do have a laptop, so I transfer my audio to the laptop or to the PC. There's so many free audio editing softwares. Like Audacity is very simple, right? So just download Audacity, put it on that, and just mess around with Audacity. If you go on YouTube, there's... Yeah, on AfriPods, yes. There you go. So all of these tools.
That's what I was doing. Shameless plug, sorry.
Yes. So the tools, and there's ways for you to know how to snip and all of that. So once you know about all of that, and then you can come to Serverbox, they'll give you a scientific filter, all of those different kind of things. But just basic editing, it's not that complex. It'll take you somewhere. So start, learn, go on the internet and just Google these things. Yeah, should work.
Start with what you have also, because I feel like what Calvin mentioned before, if you have an iPhone, put the iPhone up and build to getting the camera. Then there's something important in the growth as well, because who you need to compete with is not Mike Sarupen now, it's Mike Sarupen first episode, because that's where you're starting from. So don't compare yourself with Calvin now, who's signing his biggest thing. Compare yourself with them when they started, because then you'd be able to see where your growth is, actually. Andrew.
Hello, and as you've said, my name is Andrew. I'm Andrew Balongo Pere, and I'm the creator and host of the Revenge of the Forsaken Gods podcast. And I interview psychologists, coaches, and subject matter experts, revealing those true traits of success that we aren't taught by our parents, teachers, and society. Now, in my journey of podcasting, I notice you mentioned very good things, know your target audience, what have you. But there are what I've noticed from my journey, there are some podcasts that are very obvious. So, and especially right now, I'm trying to figure out the money aspect of it. Because, for example, if I'm targeting especially coaches and psychologists, they have information that can transform people's lives, but they're not putting themselves out there. And from hearing your story, because of your exposure to radio, you know how to have the conversation with brands. There are a lot of companies, they know what time it is, or rather they know how to do business. And I've noticed the coaches, psychologists, they have zero ideas, so zero budget and what have you. So I'd ask you, if you didn't have your radio background, you know you're doing an important thing, and I know my podcast is very niche. It's not mass market. It's a very like deep, serious, and all that. How would you approach it, especially when you know that there's opportunity for funding for it, but people just don't know because they ask the same things you've mentioned. How many numbers do you have and all this? So I know I'm also looking at the long game, like episode 100, 300, what have you. But if I'm to look at this as an enterprise that can generate revenue, what would you recommend? Thank you. Practical steps.
All right. Thank you very much. That's a very, very dope question. So I'd go at it from the angle of there's obviously need for what you're talking about, right? There's the shrinks, the psychologists, all of these different people who you're talking about. So they have associations, right? Like KMPDU, and all of these different kind of associations. Insurance is an easy sell, right? Like say for instance, my insurer, they're always talking about, we have this psychology session, we have this workshop and all of that. So you can target those guys. It's niche, but it's also not niche. These are things that people are going through. But I think I'd go for like insurance companies and all of that, because insurance is a complex sell, right? Or anybody who's in health or holistic wellness. Say for instance, zucchini, they've got a whole category of like foods that are healthy for you and all of that. So health is pretty big, right? You can even go to like Sun Gold, and all of these guys will tell you sunflower oil and all of that. I mean, they're always saying what you eat helps with your brain, right? So that's how I'd package it. Yeah. And also like big companies like alcohol companies, they're really getting into that space where they really want to talk about like, psychosis that is induced by all of these elements that, we're taking. So that's a way to also go at it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Big Z.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
Good, good.
I'm Masharia,
Hey, Masharia.
and you've been on the podcasting game for quite a while now,
Yeah.
close to half a decade. And my question to you would be, from your own POV, what do you see is about to change on the podcasting game? And also, from when you started to now, what has changed? What's something significant that you see has gotten to change on the podcasting game? Thank you.
Well, when we started, 100 plays was quite something. So that has translated to guys getting. I remember one day when I was checking out 3-Man Army, in under 24 hours they had like 46K people had listened. So that's been quite. It's been quite massive. Something that's changed over like the last couple of years. There's a report that John Alanamu dropped the other day, and he was talking about like Gen Z and how they view content creation and all of that. Content creation is an actual career. That's what I can say has changed. People are really taking it very seriously. When you think about like how many people want to be engineers, constructing bridges is cool though, but guys really want to be known for what they said, right? So there's that. What I think is going to be a game changer is vernacular. Yeah, and that's why at AfriPods we've really been pushing that kind of conversation in terms of vernacular, because it's gotten to a point where people want to tell their own stories and they want to tell it in their own language. So when vernacular really gets to that point, like there's a reason why radio stations that are vernacular still are king. So you can imagine a podcast that is with your funniest guy from your mother tongue continuously. So it's going to blow up. Yeah. And that is like, I'd put it, especially on the African continent, you can imagine how many languages we have and the population, and also people going back to their roots, people saying, okay, I'm going to learn my mother tongue and what? And how can I learn my mother tongue better than hearing people speak it? So I'm betting big back on that. Yeah.
Hi, Calvin.
Hey,
So I have two questions.
go ahead.
First of all, niche. How important is it for me to have a niche in my podcast? And then, because to define is to limit, I could have a podcast about tech, and then maybe last week or something happens, like the beef between Drake and Kendrick, and I'm really interested to talk about it with my audience. But my niche is business, so how do I go about through that? And the second question is,
Hold on. Let's go with the first one before my brain cells get fried. That was a great example that you just used. That's why I interjected. Your niche is business, and there's a Drake and Kendrick conversation. That's a brilliant business podcast, though. Because one guy is really about the business, and there's one guy who's kinda not about the business, and not to disrespect, not to like polarize anyone. But if you think about it, like how to approach it, the Drake and Kendrick situation, how Drake has gone on to, to have OVO Radio, the clothing line, the what, and this and that, and what. Then you've got Kendrick, who doesn't tour as much as Drake does. How many albums has Drake dropped? You get. So when you look at the business of music, who would like Universal want to sign? Who's going to make them more money? So that's a whole podcast about the music business, right? And that was a great conversation, and I don't know why I've never thought about that. But there's like, what's that podcast about CEOs? What's it called? Diary of a CEO, right? Yeah, Diary of a CEO. They bring so many different people, but they'll always tell you, today, we're talking about this. So they'll be like, so we've got a CEO who's talking about this, like that, like that. So if you've got a podcast where you've told your audience, it can be something different on and on and on, you've got to stick to it. But that's what your podcast is about. So your unique preposition, the uniqueness, the nicheness of the podcast is the fact that you get all of these different people to talk about all of these different things. So it's very doable. It's a brilliant one. Yeah.
Okay, so my second question is, like, the Mics is over 250 episodes, right?
I think so.
So most episodes are usually like an hour long. So these are like 250 hours you spending your time with your audience. So if someone can listen to you for 250 hours, that means you could sell them something. So how do I turn my listeners to actually paying subscribers?
Paying subscribers, that is a brilliant conversation. Hey, we've tried that paywall method, spoken about it. I don't know why on the continent it's such a complex thing. Guys are not buying it, right? Because, so why should I pay, like say for instance, I've got a subscription of like 50 bob for the Mics Are Open each and every week. Yet, Gadoni has a podcast where she's talking about this and I can get it for free, right? So I can literally Google whatever podcast that's talking about a particular subject matter, right? So it's one of those things where some guys have been able to hack it and a lot of people have not been able to. But there's also a way you can grow your community over time to be like, hey, send us this. You see a lot of people with the pay bills and what, or some guys who put it behind a paywall and they're like, this is the content that we put behind the paywall. So it's doable. More grace to everybody who's doing it. But I guess Aska has decided to go the other way of going for the ads and all of these different kind of things. Yeah.
On the paywall thing, I would also say, figure out what the value is behind the paywall. I'm not paying for what it is you're doing every week. I think a good example of that is Shits and Gigs, where one episode is free, the other one is not. So what they've done is they've basically pulled you in with the episode, and then you have FOMO for the second episode. And then what they do is they have lives as well behind the paywall. They're able to have like a monthly meetup with them, so you're able to talk to them. If you give added value to your audience, then it makes sense to have a paywall. But if all I'm paying for is the episodes, like Calvin says, there's so many other free podcasts, why should I pay? So unless there's something extra valuable, like you're talking to someone who we've never seen or we really want to hear from, you got Drake on your podcast and he's talking about the beef, then put that behind a paywall. But otherwise, figure out the value.
Actually, a good example locally for someone who's put it behind a paywall is Moafrika. If you go on the Ikonini page on YouTube, there's some content you wouldn't be able to access unless you're a member. So it's working for some guys. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Konshizi.
Wow, your voice is deep, bro.
Thank you, Calvin. I'm the host of the Confident One podcast. You can check it out on YouTube. So my question goes to you, Calvin. Juggling between podcasting and traditional media, do you think that's hindering the growth of the culture? Why can't you just quit traditional media and do podcasting? Are you inspiring confidence in the podcasting culture if you juggle between the two? What do you think about that?
Ooh, damn. My boss must have sent you. But here's the thing. So I do like my day job. Well, my 6 to 10. Why I like it is because I get to talk about music and play music and have different conversations about this and that and what the ethos of Trace is, right? So they play very different roles. I enjoy the podcast because I get to have a conversation with people and we can have whatever and talk about whatever. If I say some things on the radio, CAK will be knocking on the door with like a hefty fine and all of that. So they play two very different roles. Radio's always going to be there. I keep hearing and seeing people say, radio's dead, radio's dead. It's not. It's always going to be there. I get people calling the radio to date, people saying I heard this and what, people texting and on and on. The same for the podcast. They're cousins. They'll coexist. They play very different, what do you call it? Very different roles. And I think one of the most important things that we're going to see over time, how podcasting is going to evolve, and let's just say traditional media and podcasting. James Smart was on my show sometime last year and we were talking about digital media, right? And I'll use an example of the death of the general, may he rest in peace, some weeks back. Everybody rushed to social media to break that news, right? Everybody thinks that they can talk about it put it on video, do it on what and what and what. But true journalism in this day and age will now be, say, James Smart, who's an investigative journalist or a journalist, taking an extra month to investigate what actually happened, transpiring from when the general woke up, where did he go, where did he eat, what happened to the chopper, when the last time the chopper had been serviced, the history, all of that. So that is what, what do you call it? Traditional media can't do, because it's too long format, right? But on a podcast, I'll be able to sit and listen to that over time. So you see why I'm saying they'll be able to coexist together. So it's just one of those. And once people start to understand that, that's how it's going. Yeah.
Okay, hi Calvin.
Hey.
I'm JC, I'm a tech podcaster.
What's your podcast called?
Tech Talk Africa.
Plug it, man.
So the question is, most of the audiences in tech tend to consume the heavy tech. You see, the coders and all this blah, blah, blah kind of thing. But for us, it's kind of social tech, because we want to introduce people into tech and appreciating how tech is being used. But now finding the balance between these other people who say tech is not whatever you're talking about, while this other audience is appreciating you introducing them into tech. How do you find that balance between those geeks and this other audience? Because it's a tech podcast and you want to appreciate both.
First, I'd like to appreciate the fact that there's actually coding podcast. I've never heard of that. That is quite coded. But here's the thing. That's a very niche podcast, right? And you're obviously going to have an audience who are there continually. The feedback on that must be crazy. Like guys are saying, you didn't add this plus or all of this and all of that, right? But you've got to think of what you want to do. Do you want to maintain that very those like geeky audience who you mess with, or do you want to dumb it down a bit? Like say for instance, I don't know how to code, you get, but I probably want to learn. Maybe I want an episode where I'm learning like the ABCs of coding and all of that. So you can come up with a way to grow with your audience, right? So I think that would be an easy way to get into that. I don't think I've got the perfect answer for you, but I think that's how I'd answer it, because I'd have to consume like a tech-heavy podcast to understand. But what you have is a particular problem, but that's how I'd approach it.
Hold on. Before I have room for three more questions. So Molly has had her hand up, and one more. Okay, there's someone right next to the light. So Akumu, Molly, and please raise your hand again. Yay. So those 3 questions, then please allow me to say thank you for coming, and then you can talk to Big C. Yes? Because he'll be here. Yeah. Okay. Also, as we do Q&A, there's another QR code, please, on the screen. Please scan it for me. It's a different one from the first one. We just want to know if you enjoyed what's happening. We really need your feedback in order to do this, because if you don't tell us whether or not you like it, why are we doing it? Yes? Okay, Akumu, please don't be like Jessie, say award-winning when you mention your podcast. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Akumu from Yes Girls Podcast, the award-winning Yes Girls Podcast.
Thank you.
Hi, Calvin.
Hey, how are you?
I came late, so maybe you handled it, but our challenge as the Yes Girls Podcast is how can we continuously talk to our community? Do you, like us, we are wondering whether to start a WhatsApp group or, I don't know, email list or broadcast channel on Instagram. What would you suggest? Have you tried any? What do you think is the future of community engagement for podcast listeners? Thank you.
We tried a WhatsApp group, and that wasn't too successful. Guys weren't like interacting on it and all of that. Then the fans, the community was like, let's start our own WhatsApp group where they talk about all of that. And I think it's still there. I'd have to check. But those are things that people do. But I feel like a community, you can do it digitally and everything and all of that. But in this day and age, especially when you look at all of these podcasts and how they're doing it, you have to start coming up with these small interactive sessions where you actually go meet your audience, right? And maybe your audience are the ones with the answers of what they'd actually like to do. You get? So don't kill yourself thinking about this is what we need to do, what we need to do. Maybe some of them just want to hang out with you guys, do yoga or do whatever, or talk this and that, go for a walk, meet in a restaurant, all of these different kind of things. So ask your community how they would actually like to interact with you. Because you can tell them, guys, we've been thinking about this, the WhatsApp group, the, Instagram, this, that, what. Yeah. The community might actually help you answer yourself. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, Calvin. Hi, Gadoni. My name is Judy. I'm the host of the Complicated Woman podcast. You've talked about monetizing your podcast and everything. And I'm curious to know, when it comes to brands, what are some of the things that would make them not want to work with you? I remember recording an episode with my friends, and they were cussing and everything. And there's a creator who's very prominent, and she reached out to me and she told me, there's some things you do that will make brands not want to consider working with you. So I'm curious to know, how true is that, and what are some of the things that would make brands not want to work with you as a creator?
Funny enough, I think Molly, Gadoni, myself, and the team were having this conversation some time back, and I happen to be sitting in one of those meetings tomorrow where we're talking about brands and podcasts, right? So a lot of brands want to get into podcasts. But the problem a lot of brands have is security of their brand. So a lot of people want to cuss and say this and that and what, and brands don't want that kind of affiliation. Like, I'll use us guys as an example. So we're currently running a campaign for Cop Bank, right? So we do 2 episodes a month for them. On the podcast where we're doing Cop Bank, we don't cuss, right? Because they are not messing with those kind of cuss words, right? And the kind of stories and the content. So you just need to know how to balance it out. But indeed, even on YouTube, actually, if you cuss a lot, they've got a very interesting rating system. They might kind of flag you. I'll read about that and give you an answer for that. But they're very particular. Don't cuss too much, right? Yeah, you can say, God damn it, once or twice or something, but don't just do a lot of profanity. Yeah.
As a podcaster who cusses, what I can say to you is it depends on who your brand is or the type of brands you want. Now, as a podcast, for my podcast, I have a podcast with my sisters called Okay Kiasi. I'm the one who curses, which means there are certain brands we can't have. So no children's, nothing. I can't sell diapers. I can't sell any of those things. Can I sell alcohol? Yes. Can I sell, we had condom people come up to us? Yes. Because there are certain people who, even in whatever it is, your type of language, the audience that they want to reach is not affected by how you speak. So the question I would put to you is, which brands do you want to work with? And then determine based on that the limitations or the parameters you want to set for yourself so that you're attractive to these brands. In that sense. So it's your USP, figure out on your vision board, as Calvin said earlier, figure out who you want to talk to. If you want banks, don't curse, right? But if you want London Distillery, YOLO.
But what's interesting with what Gadoni is saying, we've got guys on those particular episodes who tell us, why aren't you guys being real, man? We came here for the, but we're just like, guys,
it's the bag.
It's the bag. You get, the lights have to stay on. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's one of those. Balance.
Thank you, Calvin. Last question from Molly. It was you. You're the last one, I promise.
Hi, everyone. I go by MJ. My question is about format. So I am a big Mike's fan. I also love Okakiasi and Zen Moments. Those are probably some of my favorites. But I remember when the Mikes were doing the Monday minisode. Why did you guys decide to play with format in terms of time, and what did you learn about it?
Why did we decide to do what?
Why did you play with format? Why did you decide to have a 20-minute segment as well as a longer one, and did you learn anything by that?
I think the minisode arose because there were so many different things that were happening and we didn't want to wait up until Friday, right? Like when Jada Pinkett came out and spoke about August Alsina, we were on that WhatsApp group, turn your mics on, let's go, let's record this, you get? So it's fresh, we have to hit that. And the minisode was just rumbling. It's not too particularly heavy. And we do like, 15 to 20 minutes, whatever, and it's evolved into now the whenever-sode, right? So we don't shoot it on Monday, because it got to a point, guys were so busy, too many moving parts. But if I was to show you guys our WhatsApp group, I was on duty this week, and I wrote what we needed to talk about, right? So it's like how you guys have a study group? So you'll be like, here are 5 topics, and here are the links. And you're like, these are the notes. Get familiar, come up with your own opinion, so that when we start having a conversation, it's now to flow out of this and that and what, and everybody knows the role that they play. Who's the serious one, who's the joker, who's giving this and that opinion. So it's very important, especially if you do a podcast with different personalities, for people to know. But also I think radio kind of helps, because you guys just don't want to do a podcast where all of you guys agree on something. Like, that car is bad. Yeah, that car's bad. That car's bad, right? Yeah. Someone has to say, bro, I love that car. Like, have you seen those yellow rims?
What if the car is bad?
Huh?
But what if the car is actually bad?
But it's provocative. It gets the people going.
Okay.
No one knows what that means, right? Yeah. But so that you need to remember that people have you in their ears or watching you in their living rooms and all of that. And entertainment, like, it's you want to mess. It's like reading a good book. You're reading and visualizing. In as much as you're reading it in your own voice, you're visualizing and all of that. So you've got to create a bit of drama and just have a good entertainment purpose to it, right? So do it like that. Yeah.
All right. Everybody join me in thanking Calvin for being here. Yay. Calvin, thank you for making the time to be here. We appreciate you. at AfriPods and as a community of podcasters. I want to say a special thank you to Baraza Media Lab. We would not be here without you. CK, you rock. You and your team are absolutely the best. I want to say thank you to Summerbox. As you can see, there's a lot of light making me look cute. Praise the Lord. Anyway, so Summerbox, we couldn't do this without you. Thank you guys for making the time. Thank you for being here in the dark. You guys are the absolute best. I want to say thank you to AfriPods as well. MJ, as she mentioned, is the CEO. Please stand up and say hi to the people. And then we also have Angela, who is our project manager. Please say hi to the people. If you have any questions on AfriPods or anything, those are the people to talk to. Calvin is also an AfriPods, so you can talk to him as well. My name is Gathoni. You can find me at OK Kiasi. Please follow AfriPods. Please follow Semabox. Please follow Baraza Media Lab on social media. There's a lot more spaces like this that are created by all of those brands. And Calvin, where can we find you?
Oh, very simple, man. 6 to 10 each and every single morning. Yeah. Don't sleep on me. I wake up to wake you guys up. On Trace FM 95.3. Each and every Friday, 10 o'clock, we drop a new episode. At times we might be late because someone slept. It might come out at 10:30. And just search for the mics are open. You'll find us. Yeah.
You don't be found yourself?
Huh?
When do they find you?
Where can they find me? They can find me on literally Instagram, X, no Facebook.
Give the handles, Calvin.
At Calvin Wanguku.
Okay.
I know you want me to say my
And on
second name.
X? No.
Oh, only one Calvin.
Thank you.
Literally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys, for
Thank
coming
you for
through.
coming,
I truly
guys. You're
appreciate
amazing.
it.
Thank you.